Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Dorm Next Door podcast. And I've been going at it. I've been working hard, and this has been a crazy last day in our country. So if you don't know, in the last 24 hours, the House Oversight Committee has released emails relating to and from Jeffrey Epstein's private emails. It has been tough to look at, tough to read. And the thing is that the main focus in these emails, the main subject in the communication has been Donald Trump. And he is referred to in these emails, if you don't know, as the dog that hasn't barked, specifically from, I believe, Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, these emails themselves do not, I believe, incriminate President Trump. However, they do raise questions. And the scary thing is he has been somebody that promised during his election cycle that these things would be released. In the past, I know he did. I know when he got pressured in interviews on national television, he would, take a step back and he would question it a little bit. But one of the main things that Donald Trump got elected for was that he would release the Epstein files. And recently in Truth Social, over the last 72 hours, he has made it clear that Epstein and everything that has to do with the files is a complete Democrat hoax to keep us distracted. So how has Epstein been for us to be distracted from Democrats when everything that has happened seems to be a distraction from Epstein? I mean, the day that Charlie Kirk died, the House declined to release the Epstein files. Because you know what? Had he not passed away, I'm not saying there's a connection there, I'm not. But I'm saying everything seems to be pointing towards a distraction from us realizing what's going on with the Epstein files and asking questions about it, rather than vice versa. The Epstein files themselves have never been the thing that is supposed to distract Americans. It has always been the things that politicians, whomever else, has wanted to point us away from. And so one thing that we're not getting answers for, that we've asked for, we're going to see information on Kennedy, we're going to see information on Martin Luther King Jr. way before we read a single thing about what really happened with Epstein. But these emails are the surface. And so it seems to me like, doesn't even seem to me, the House now has the votes to release and to move forward with the release of these files. But the emails were just the initial taste of what we're going to see. And one of the things was there's a, I forgot, I think her last name is Grijalva, but I think her name is, I'm going to go with it, Adelita Grijalva, who is a representative from Arizona, who's a Democrat that defeated the Republican in this last race, was declined to be sworn in by Mike Johnson until after the government shutdown ended. And she was the final vote that tipped the scale for these files to now be released. So we're in a position now where it seems like we are going to finally see something. Now, if you ask me personally, my answer would have been, over the past few months, when we've started to see the fact that Trump is dodging this, I would have said, oh no, the Epstein files were destroyed. Not that they were a hoax, but the fact that we would never see them, because it would make sense that elites, people that don't want these files to be released to the public, would just simply destroy them. It seems like the easy thing, but they definitely do exist. They definitely do exist. And I think Kash Patel, the FBI director, who in a podcast in 2023 said that the Epstein files were directly under the control of the FBI director, was seen recently looking like he is scared for his life. And I do believe so. I believe that Kash Patel, the FBI director, is genuinely scared for his life, which is why he went from one of the biggest advocates in the public sphere, one of the biggest advocates in talking in media for the release of the Epstein files, has all of a sudden said, no, we don't have them. There's nothing on Jeffrey Epstein. He switched like that. Him and Dan Bongino, whom before the 2024 election you would have seen as true American patriots that were going to make a serious change, all of a sudden are the ones in power as FBI director and deputy FBI director, and all of a sudden there's nothing to be seen. But you know what we do know as of this point about Jeffrey Epstein? He was meeting with everybody. Now, Elon Musk was planned on a schedule to get lunch with him, I think back in 2014. Peter Thiel around the same time. Both of those guys coming from PayPal were scheduled to meet with him separately, I believe. But the conversations with Peter Thiel, I think, are going to be more interesting because from there, we've seen over the last 10 years the rise of Peter Thiel's Palantir, which is, if you do not know what Palantir is, not enough Americans know Peter Thiel's name or about Palantir. And Palantir is the company that is responsible for the largest mass surveillance of American citizens in the world that the world has ever seen. And it's not being done by Russian spies like the Red Scare in the 1950s and 60s. And it's not being done by the Chinese. It's not being done by any country. Oops, malfunction. It's not being done by any country except the United States on its own people. On its own people. The largest mass surveillance in the world. I don't care what China's doing. They've always been doing it. It's something that it shouldn't come as a shock because they're not a free country. But in the free country of the United States, you are being tracked by keystrokes. TikTok that you use on your phone actively tracks your behavioral patterns down to this minute detail. The amount of privacy that you have once you are connected is zero. I have no privacy. And you, as of this point, are going to start to realize that you have a lot less privacy than you think. But back to Jeffrey Epstein. There are other people mentioned in these files, in these emails. One specific man that we need to know by now is Roy Black, and he died this past year. Roy Black is somebody that was in these files, in these emails, and one of the things that he was talking about was how they can kind of get dirt on Donald Trump, how they can figure out how to manipulate and use this so that they can gain so that the public will give sympathy to Epstein. What do we know the context of these antics were, or what kind of things that they were going to try and say? We don't know. But one of the things that has been revealed is that if you look up Roy Black is simply a Google search away. He was the lawyer for Epstein, and he was also the lawyer for Rush Limbaugh, one of the most famous radio show hosts that the United States has ever seen. And he was one of the biggest advocates for President Trump during his first term before he died of cancer. And also, Steve Bannon is mentioned, and he is heavily tied to Epstein. And in 2016 and 17, he was Donald Trump's chief strategist. And then from there, when he was disgraced and he was fired, and from 2018 and 2019, he fostered a very tight relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. And there's something like 15 hours worth of documentary footage that has not been released that Steve Bannon filmed with Epstein over those 2 years. Trump is looking very, very guilty right now, but we know for a fact that the people around him are obviously guilty. And you're innocent until proven guilty in this country, but it's over. It's completely over. At this point, we need to realize that the MAGA movement has been completely compromised by everything else other than what it was originally supposed to represent, which is you and I. I'm going to be honest when I say this. In American politics, if you haven't realized this already, you and I no longer have a seat at the table. And I don't think that we've had a seat at the table for a very long time. These people do not care what you think. They're going to make decisions that affect your life, that make them richer and make you over the years poorer without giving you an actual say. We might think that we have a vote, but no matter what, these people get elected. No matter what, they're going to keep getting elected because of whatever party they represent. Now, it's a whole different episode to talk about the fact that our party system is faulty. And I don't think anybody's a huge fan of the two-party system at all. But from the bottom to the top, from the roots of the tree to the leaves at the very, very top of the branches, our country has been infected by foreign interests and the interests of oligarchs. Epstein had ties to pretty much everybody in the world, and that's what we know for a fact. And we've been pushing. I think this is one of the things that people would not let blow over. People demanded answers with the Epstein files, and they are hopefully going to get them. I know I was upset. When we spent the last 8 years thinking that Trump was going to be the one to reveal these things, And I don't necessarily think that he is 100%. More needs to come out before we jump to conclusions. But it's looking very bad right now because he shifted entirely. And now he is blaming you or I for asking questions. I'm sorry, every American has the right to ask questions about this. And this is coming from somebody that has loved Donald Trump since he was a little kid. That's me. We will figure out what happened with Epstein regardless of what anybody thinks. This is beyond Trump. This is beyond what I think we even understand. Jeffrey Epstein was not just simply compromising people that wanted to be famous so they were all part of this club. No, it wasn't just about celebrities. It wasn't about fame. This is talking about control. This is intelligence. This is talking about control over foreign governments, controlling entire countries. He was much more important than we give him credit. It's not just, Tom Hanks, Kevin Spacey went to Epstein's Island. All the celebrities went there. It's so much more than that. Because Epstein was connected to billionaires. He was rich out of nowhere. People don't know this. But he was hired. His story doesn't even make sense, okay? He was hired at the Dalton School. It was a very prestigious secondary school in New York City. And this was in the 70s. And he was a young guy. He was about 20 years old, and he had no former experience. And you know who he was hired by? The headmaster at the school was Bill Barr's dad. Bill Barr was the attorney general that presided over Jeffrey Epstein's case during the first Trump administration. So his father hired him at the school with no prior experience, and then he got let go for weird behavior. He didn't just become weird overnight. He was weird even when he was 20 years old and he was teaching. And then he ended up working at Goldman Sachs, which is a very, very, very high and prestigious financial firm. Now, I'm not necessarily too fresh on the specifics of this, but then it's not Goldman Sachs. I'm sorry. He got hired at Bear Stearns. And then he got let go from Bear Stearns. There's a repetition of him being hired at jobs that he has no precedence being at, no prior experience. Nothing would make sense for him to get hired at these places, and then he gets fired. But then, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this guy's rich. And he is rich. He's somebody that is able to fly anywhere in the world, and the plane is one of the most important details in the story. Because it shows that these people weren't just meeting with him, right? High-profile people, wealthy people, they meet with people all the time. But people of high profile were traveling with him. But how did he get this money? Well, we don't really know. However, what you need to understand is that Ghislaine Maxwell, his partner who he's tied to and she's still alive in prison, that we haven't really gotten any answers out of, her dad was Robert Maxwell, a very, very well-known guy during the 20th century, and he will go down in history. There's a lot to unpack with Robert Maxwell himself. But Robert Maxwell was early in the days of the State of Israel, and he was known to work and operate with Mossad. So much so that he, towards the end of his life, had built a company, and he was a very, very wealthy man. And he was taking from the pension fund, from the retirement fund of his own company to help fund Mossad operations. And then from there, he finally got caught because he ran out of money. And then it's reported that there were arguments. He was saying to Mossad that I have funded you for this long, that you need to have my back. And guess what? From there, you know what happened? From these arguments that he got into, he was eventually found dead outside of his yacht. These things nothing makes sense. And we need to realize, we need to get to the point where we just surrender and admit that none of this makes sense, and it's so much bigger than we understand. They're all connected. That's the craziest part. And I don't know if we'll know these people's names. I don't even know what we're going to get out of this, but we've taken the first steps. Guys, Just because Trump doesn't want us to focus on it doesn't make it a Democrat issue. Somebody said to me today, they said, okay, well then, if there's anything on Trump, then why didn't Biden just release it when he was the president? You got to understand, everybody is compromised in this. It's everybody. It's not, think past both the Republican and Democrat Party. It has nothing to do with that. Everybody in power, at some capacity, at the highest levels of government, at the highest levels of wealth, at the highest levels of fame, seems to be compromised and involved with a man that was supposed to just exist in obscurity. He's not supposed to be famous. He was never supposed to be famous. He was rich, yes, but he was never supposed to be a guy that we took notice to. But then, when time was erased in the prison that he was in, during that period of time, he died. He just died. It's time that we all as a country wake up. It's time that we learn the names that are involved. It's time we look deeper. It's time that we have to realize that our country our government does not deserve our trust at all. In fact, we need to ask a lot of questions. Don't ever feel bad. Don't let Trump make you feel bad for asking questions. I'm not entirely convinced that he's guilty. None of us should be. However, at some capacity, these people need to earn our trust back. I am not partial to any party at this point, though I would in the past consider myself to be a hardcore Republican. That's how I grew up. But at this point, we all need to step outside of parties and just look at it for what it is. And that it is one big party that everybody's invited to except for the everyday American citizen. It's a club. It's one big prestigious club that once you're in, you seemingly can't make it out alive. It is the scariest thing that we have all stumbled upon in our lifetimes. And this seemed to not really have existed prior. So it seems like a recent thing, at least in the past 30, 40 years, that this operation has taken place that has gotten everybody involved. Everybody's gotten scooped up into it. And I think that we are very, very close to figuring out why. Perhaps we are figuring out why. So we need to pray to God that we finally start to get some transparency and some questions asked. It has always been, over the last 10 years, when we have more and more centralized control over media, over whatever it is, social media, everything that you see on your feed, at some extent, is controlled and is going to be controlled at an even greater rate in the future. But from these things, we are meant to be entirely distracted from this. This is the thing. The Epstein situation, his crimes, his identity is the central issue in today's world. It is the biggest question. It is the biggest unsolved mystery for the American people and less related to the rest of the world. But it is our issue. It is our crime to solve. We largely have to get to the bottom of this because we know that House oversight, Senate oversight in Congress, the government, any of those things are faulty and they do not care about us. I don't really believe that we've had real oversight into intelligence agencies or anything like that in over 40 years. So it's our job as the American citizen, as a responsible American citizen, to push and to push hard. To just keep demanding answers, to keep asking questions, to keep pressing forward and making them uncomfortable when we ask those questions. Because us asking them those questions puts them in an uncomfortable situation. And their reaction to us demanding transparency in this issue should be evidence enough that they are all lying to us. You're being lied to. I'm being lied to. So we have to push to eventually get truth. We have to push. I want to get to the bottom of this going forward, and I want to research more on the subject because there's so much to know. But that's all I have for this episode. I wish I would have gone deeper, but with time, we're going to learn more and we're going to find out more. And so I get to go and I'm going to research this a little bit more. And then maybe next week I'll provide more information that I have. But that's all for this episode. And thank you so much for listening to it. And I feel like we're just there. I feel like we're getting to the point where eventually we're going to have the answers and that the American people are going to persevere through it and that we're going to get through this. We're going to get answers. And that I hope and I pray that we're going to see a day in America where we have justice again. But thank you so much for listening to episode 7 of the Dorm Next Door podcast. It has been a crazy week, and it seems like things just keep getting crazier. But I'm glad that out of all the craziness that you came here and you spent your time with me once a week. But it means the world to me that people want to listen to what I have to say. So thank you so much, and have a great rest of your week.